Carbon monoxide is something that we need to talk about. It is a fairly common indoor pollutant. It's present everywhere, but when it builds up inside the house, it can kill people, okay? And it's generally preventable, okay? Carbon monoxide is another colorless, odorless, tasteless gas. We don't know that it's present until we start feeling ill, okay? And then, unfortunately, it can kind of mimic the flu and stuff like that, so we don't always know what's happening. And then, unfortunately, there are people that can die in their sleep because that's one of the things is it just makes us really sleepy, okay? What happens, how we end up with carbon monoxide in the air inside our house, is usually from the incomplete combustion of carbon. Okay, so all of our fuels that we're using, all of our fossil fuels, natural gas, gasoline, coal, whatever we're doing, wood, though when those are being burned, if they're not combusted well, there's a couple things that can happen. If there's not a complete combustion, okay, if they're not combusted well, it can release carbon monoxide. Okay? The other thing that can happen is if, for whatever reason, we don't have enough makeup air, and we'll talk about what that means here in a little bit, but if we start burning exhaust air, we can create carbon monoxide. Okay, so what usually is emitted when we burn fossil fuels is carbon dioxide. Okay? We release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. If we burn carbon dioxide, and so we use oxygen to combust, we need oxygen to combust these fuels. If there's not enough oxygen, sometimes whatever is burning this fuel will start to burn carbon dioxide. And when carbon dioxide is burned, it releases carbon monoxide, okay? So that's how it happens. And we'll get a little more specific here in a minute. But even though it's really, really toxic, our body loves it, okay? It's easily absorbed into the lungs. And what happens is it combines with hemoglobin and prevents hemoglobin from transporting oxygen into the brain, okay? And so we die from lack of oxygen to the brain, which is technically how everybody dies, but this is what happens. It inhibits our blood's ability to transport oxygen. So combustion appliances are the biggest source of carbon monoxide in the house. And quick note, everybody always talks about CO2 when they're referring to carbon monoxide or putting up CO2 detectors in the house. Carbon monoxide is CO, okay, right here. It's got one oxide, monoxide, rather than two, which would be dioxide, so CO. If you put up a CO2 detector in your house, it would be going off all the time. It would never stop, okay? But we put up a carbon monoxide detector in the house, and we don't want that to go off, okay? So let's get back on track here. But wood burning or gas burning stoves release carbon monoxide. Furnaces, carbon monoxide. Boilers release carbon monoxide. Water heaters, generators, motor vehicles, okay? Electric water heaters, not really, okay? But anything that burns gas, or like I said, coal, or natural gas, or oil, or any sort of carbon-based fossil fuels, have the potential to release carbon monoxide into the air. Okay. We talked a little bit about combustion appliances re-burning carbon dioxide and creating carbon monoxide, okay? What that is referring to is backdrafting, okay? So if there's not enough makeup air in the house, if there's not enough oxygen in the air for an appliance to combust the fuel properly, it'll start drawing air back in from the flue. Okay, so the easiest example, I guess, is like a wood stove. So think of a wood stove, and it needs lots of air in order to combust the wood. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why wood stoves kind of don't make a lot of sense in higher performing homes. It's because they need a lot of air. Okay, you gotta open windows in order for a wood stove to function properly if the house isn't leaking all over the place anyway. Okay, so just think of a wood stove and it's trying to burn the wood. And if there's not enough makeup air, it'll start pulling smoke back down from the chimney and trying to burn up whatever's left in there in order to combust that fuel. Okay, and so what'll happen is it'll pull that carbon dioxide back down, start burning that up, and it'll create carbon monoxide. Okay, this can be a big problem if you have a gas range or a gas water heater. Gas water heaters can be vented all the time, but you could have some problems with the vents. But what can happen with gas appliances is if you have too much ventilation over that gas appliance, you can cause backdrafting. Okay, it'll start pulling air from other places, potentially pulling exhaust air down from the water heater or something like that in order to burn that fuel. Okay, and that's how carbon monoxide can be created. So this is just a rule that I thought it was good for people to know if you're planning your kitchen out or something like that. But if you have a kitchen range hood and it's exhausting more than 400 cubic feet per minute, you need to have makeup air. You need to supply a source of combustion air for that appliance so that you aren't going to cause backdrafting in the house. Okay, and most of the range hoods that you get will say what, like how many cubic feet per minute they're moving. Okay, which I would just say generally people tend to buy more range hood than they need. Everybody wants to get these huge, like commercial style range hoods to put in their kitchens. I'm not sure what they're doing in there, but that can be problematic. If you're exhausting too much air in excess of 400 cubic feet per minute, you need to have makeup air. Or you could create a condition where there's backdrafting. You could be elevating the amount of carbon monoxide inside the house. The health effects, this is pretty sad, but like I said before, you can feel like you have the flu. And there's a couple different ways this can present itself. You can have carbon monoxide exposure for a long-term exposure at low levels, okay? And you could just kind of feel sick and crummy and like you have the flu and fatigued, nauseated. Unfortunately, those effects can be long-term, okay? You can have these forever. This can affect you forever, okay? The other thing that can happen is acute exposure. There's a big exposure to carbon monoxide, but Lassie wakes everybody up and gets them out of the house or something like that, and everybody survives. You can still have long-term effects from that as well. Depression, psychosis. And then, a lot of people die too. A lot of people die in their sleep from carbon monoxide poisoning. So it can be difficult to tell what's going on at first. Okay, all of these things here are things that can happen to people normally, and we might not know it's carbon monoxide poisoning. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to have a carbon monoxide detector in every bedroom, and this is the code, okay? We've got to have one in every bedroom, in the hallways leading to bedrooms, and at least one per level of the house. Okay, if you have a 2-story house, you need one on every level, okay? They sell combination smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, okay? And then the other thing that's nice for new houses is they have to all be connected. Okay, they're hardwired into the house, so you don't have to worry about batteries, and they all are connected to each other. So if one starts going off somewhere, they all start going off, okay? You should never use gas appliances. Let me back that up. You should never use a kitchen gas appliance like a range or a stove to heat the house, okay? There's gas furnaces, yes, gas stoves. In the living room, those are all vented, okay? Your gas appliances in the kitchen aren't necessarily vented, and you shouldn't be using those to heat the house, okay? Especially in a more insulated, tighter envelope house, okay? Don't run gasoline or propane or charcoal powered equipment inside the house, inside an enclosed area, okay? Don't operate it within 20 feet of an open window, okay? There have been cases where people have been running a generator because the power went out and it was right next to a window and all the exhaust went into the house and everybody died, okay? Especially we've been having like electrical infrastructure issues the last few years, and there's been like power outages and blackouts and related to wildfires and stuff like that. Everybody's buying generators, everybody's hooking these things up. Not only do they maybe not know what they're doing when they hook it up to the grid, but a lot of people don't understand how that exhaust works. And there are people that die every year from having a generator running too close to the house, okay? You got to pay attention to the vents for gas appliances, okay? A lot of times the vent can get disrupted. It can have a hole in it or something like that, okay? It could not have a vent at all, okay? I've seen that before too. Things to look for are corrosion. If you see corrosion, like this is a gas tank water heater, and if you see all this corrosion around here, that means there's a bunch of moisture up here. There's a lot of moisture escaping the exhaust on this water heater. So if there's a bunch of moisture getting out here that's not going up the vent, that means there's also carbon monoxide getting out there as well, okay? And so this is a gravity vent. There's no like seal on it, okay? It doesn't clamp down on top of this thing. It's just relying on the fact that this is drafting to the outside. This air is lighter. It's going to want to go up and out, okay? But if you have some backdrafting happening in the house, instead of going up this vent, it's going to go to wherever that area of low pressure is, and you're going to have some problems there.